Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be working on a simple textured gold cake. And the first thing we need to do is ice our cake. Remember, we don't need to crumb coat, so we're just skipping that entire process because we're going to use a piping bag. Now we're going to level the top of this cake using our spatula, and so just smoothing the top of your cake down and making sure your spatula is leveled. The next thing we do is we use a cake scraper to take off as much icing as we can off the body of this cake. Now we're going to find that as you take some icing, you find some areas which you need to replace with more icing, which you need to fill with more icing. So we're just going in and we're doing that right now, filling it with more icing. Because I was icing this cake, because of the size, the cake was actually sliding around on the turntable. So if you ever experience that problem, all you need to do is hold your board down with one hand and then use your scraper on the other hand. So now we're using a cake comb to try to create a texture on this cake. Now there are a couple of rules that you should be aware of if you are going to use a cake comb. The first one I did here, it didn't come out as smooth as I wanted, so I went in again to do it, which is a thing, you can actually do it twice over. So if you're using a cake comb, make sure that the comb rests flush on the cake. So make sure your comb is flat and just rests on the cake, because if you angle it out, it's going to create like a sharp edge and to look like really uneven. So just stick with making sure the cake comb rests flush on the cake, and then gently move that up and down to create that motion. Now we need to get out our airbrush. I'm going to use a manual airbrush for this, and I have filled it with gold dust. So now I want to protect my wall. I need to make sure that the gold does not get on the wall. Although we're using dry dust, we didn't mix this with alcohol, we just used the dust only. Now you've got your airbrush and you pump out that gold dust. When you do this in sections. Now we're going to get out our mold. This is the mold that we're using. Now I'm using this mold with fondant. Get a piece of fondant and then press that into the mold. Before you push the fondant in the mold, make sure you dust that mold with a little bit of cornstarch. Now I'm using a knife to just trim the excess fondant on the mold. Now after trimming the excess fondant on the mold, you are ready to go. Pull that fondant out of the mold, and now we can stick this directly on the cake. But before we stick this on the cake, we need to paint the edges of the pieces of fondant, because when you stick your fondant on the cake, you might have a little bit of difficulty trying to get the edges when you're painting. So I prefer to paint the edges first and then stick it on the cake. You press that into the cake, press the fondant into the cake and make sure it sticks flush to the cake. Then we just go over the painting and paint any areas that have not been painted. Now we're going to get our cake topper. We're going to find a suitable position for that topper and then we insert the topper. Next thing we do is to grab the fan. This fan was made using a piece of wafer paper And if you need a video, just let me know in the comment section and I will provide that video. So to do this, first we use a knife to create a little hole, and then we simply stick the fan into that hole. The last thing we need to do is get our flour and simply place that on the cake. There you have it, guys. We are done with this cake and I think it looks simply fabulous. If you've gotten this far into the video, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.